Hello Blazers, welcome to episode 77 of UAB Green and Told, original debut August 1st, 2022. Through our podcast, we have the chance to share stories from members of the UAB community. Want to listen to past episodes? We can be found at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold or on Spotify or the Apple Podcast app. And while there, leave a written review so other alumni can find us as well. I'm Greg Berry, a UAB alum and assistant director in the UAB Office of Alumni Affairs. Dancing is an art as it transmits culture and emotions. Ballet, tap, jazz, and hip-hop, there are many forms of dance. Just ask today's guest, Grace Ann Champion. A former UAB Golden Girl, Grace Ann has been a dancer seemingly forever and will share that there is more to dance than meets the eye.
I've had 2 knee surgeries. I've torn my medial meniscus in my right knee twice. One of them was at UAB.
But now, Grace Ann has taken her life from the dance floor into the boardroom and is working as a financial auditor.
It's not for everyone. A lot of people hear my job and they would rather hit the snooze button and stay in bed, but I really enjoy it.
Plus, she'll share her passion for giving back and the reason behind establishing her own nonprofit, Grace Ann's 2 Cents.
Everything affects money and money affects everything. And so it's really important that, as people are having more conversations and realizing that it does need to be put, that financial education is a huge part of our lives.
Growing up, Grace Ann Champion's family moved from New Jersey to Illinois, Ohio, and Florida. In each city, she discovered she was good at finding new places and new friends, and a lot of that can be traced to dance. She picked up dance as a 3rd grader and never looked back. That's where her UAB story begins.
One of the first things that we always did was get plugged into wherever we moved. Whether it was a club at school, our local church, or for me it was dance. For a little bit it was soccer, gymnastics. So that was definitely a really helpful tool.
When it comes to dancing, you have to have a favorite style, right?
I'm a ballerina at heart. I have the long torso and long legs for ballet, and I took it growing up. So that will always be my first love.
As a kid and you were learning the dances, how much did you have to know? Because there's a lot that go into them, plus all the different styles. So what does that encompass?
It's a lot of just remembering, knowing how you learn best. I'm a very kinesthetic learner, so I learn by doing. It's a reason that I love dancing. And so it's a lot of, knowing how you learn best, whether that's just watching somebody, whether it's listening to the music, whether it's actually doing it yourself in your body. So it really depends on the person.
As a ballerina, when you were 8, 9, 10 years old, you probably wanted to grow up to be a dancer. Is that correct?
Absolutely. When I was younger, it was be a ballerina at the New York City Ballet or, go to Joffrey Ballet School or something like that. But, dance is a very interesting industry that, if you want to be a professional dancer, you have to start training very rigorously, very young. And so I kind of dissuaded myself from that a little bit and just realized, I can keep it as a hobby. I can keep doing it as something I love into adulthood without making it my career.
So exactly what was your progression in dance as a youngster?
I started dancing just kind of recreationally when I was in the 3rd grade, and then I started competing when I was in the 6th grade. So 6th grade all the way up until I graduated high school was when I was competing, and then I started dancing at UAB.
A lot of people probably don't know what goes into it, but there's a lot of aches and pains as a dancer. What do people not know about the sport of dancing?
Dance is not very natural for your body. We contort our bodies in a lot of ways that, put a lot of weight on things that probably shouldn't bear your entire body weight. So, I've had 2 knee surgeries. I've torn my medial meniscus in my right knee twice. One of them was at UAB. So, it's definitely something that you have to consider. Like any other sport, we had athletic trainers, we got rehab. A lot of people don't see it as a sport because it is very artistic, but it is very athletic.
When time came to start looking at colleges, was dance always a factor in the search?
Absolutely. That was how I made my first friends at UAB. Was dance team practices started in the summer before my freshman year, and those were the first friends that I made. And so I always knew that I wanted to find some sort of dance outlet, whether it was like a club or if it was for a team at UAB, I wanted to continue it.
So why UAB?
I actually wasn't planning on UAB at all. My entire family is huge Auburn fans. So, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, you name it, they went to Auburn. So I was dead set on going to Auburn and I got in and everything. And my parents were like, "Are you sure you don't want to tour anywhere else, like UAB?" And I was like, "Okay, fine, sure, I'll tour it." And I toured it and I fell in love with it. I got a lot of scholarship money from UAB. I loved Birmingham as a city, and I loved how UAB was just a little pocket of that. That's really kind of how I made my decision.
Between Auburn and UAB, they're two totally different experiences. One's down on the plain, away from everything. The other is in the heart of a urban community. Was the draw to UAB to be a part of something that was thriving and growing and just in that heart of a community?
Absolutely. I mean, I come from a small town in Florida, so I love being in the city. I love being where things are happening. And I love that UAB really blended into Birmingham. People were working throughout Birmingham while going to school. The business school did a lot of work in this community. So I really loved being in the middle of where things were happening.
You mentioned that you did the tryouts for the dance team over the summer. Actually, I think you said you were participating. So you did the tryouts for the dance team before you actually arrived at UAB. What was that process like? How difficult, how challenging was it?
It was a lot. It's 2 days. It's pretty much 2 days long. You have to do a lot. You learn the fight song, you learn cheers, you learn different sidelines. I mean, you really have to show that you're field and court ready. We have to be at appearances, at football games, basketball games, volleyball games, you name it, we've probably been there, parades. It was really, really hard, but it was also super fun because you got to get a little bit of the glimpse of what it was like. There were a lot of great women trying out, and it was a really fun process.
When I had Cody Sellers, the Spirit Team coach, on the podcast a while back, he said that once you hear the first few notes of a song, you have to leap into action. That can't be easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy thing, so you have to react within just moments. Is that correct?
You hear the first two notes of fight song, and you have to know exactly what you're doing. You have to know where you're supposed to be in relation to everybody else. Even as like with game day, with cheers, with music, us in the cheer team, we have that. You always have to be on, whether it's a song playing over the loudspeaker, we have to come up with the sideline dance. You have to watch what dance they're calling out. You have to listen for the cheer. If you hear the crowd cheering something, you need to go along with it. You have to pay attention to the game as well. If we're on defense, we can't have an offense cheer and the other way around. You have to know how much time is on the clock. There's so many moving parts. So that 4 hours goes by very quickly.
How often were you practicing? Because you're doing competition and game days. There's more to it than what's forward-facing to the fans.
For Golden Girls, we had workouts twice a week and we practiced 3 times a week on top of all of the games and appearances we went to. So we had 6 a.m. workouts. We were in the Bell building at 6, bright and early at 6 a.m. working out. And then we had 3 different practices a week gearing up to competing for nationals. There were a lot more. But again, that's on top of football games, basketball games, volleyball games, going out into the community, and our schoolwork, because we were all full-time college students.
I was going to bring that up because you had to balance things. Not only are you an athlete, but you're at UAB to get an education. And for you, that was in the Collat School of Business looking for a degree in accounting. So how did you balance the two worlds?
It was a lot of time management, but it was a lot of studying in the locker room. It was a lot of time management, studying right up until you have to start going to practice, listening. I've heard people listen to lectures while we were running or like doing our runs pre-practice. So it was a lot of time management. That's how I learned a lot of my time management skills.
And you did well. You really performed well in the classroom with a 3.9 cumulative GPA at UAB. Did you ever think about giving up dance?
Not really. I think that, UAB and the athletic department just in general made sure that academics came first, that we were student athletes and not just athletes that happened to go to school. So, I spent a lot of hours in the athletics study lab, clocked a lot of hours in there. I, made sure that my academics came first. And I think that our coaches and athletic leadership made that very, very clear to us.
What was the most difficult class you had at UAB?
Oh, I would have to say that was when I was in my master's degree, and it was a class, it was an information systems class. I know nothing about technology or computers, and it was all about data warehouses, and it was rough. I barely squeaked by.
But still, you wound up with 2 degrees. You got a bachelor's in accounting and then your master of accounting. So why was that your career path?
I kind of stumbled into it. So I had the opportunity to go to, it's called the Collegiate High School of Northwest Florida State College. My sophomore year of high school, I was thrown into a fully dual enrolled program. So I was a full-time high school student, I was a full-time college student. And one of the parts of that was we had to meet with a college academic advisor and we had to declare our plan of study. We had to declare a major. And I've always been very, very math minded. I'm very analytical that way. And so I kind of knew my two options were engineering and accounting. So I went and I met with the advisor, and that's kind of the options they gave me. And they were like, oh, engineering, you have to take all of the calculus and all of that. And accounting was you take accounting classes and you go up to, I think it was business calculus, and that was it. And I was like, sign me up for that one. And being a 16-year-old in my first accounting class, I knew nothing. I had no clue what an asset what a liability was. There were people there way ahead of me in life. And so it was a lot of learning, and I really just started to fall in love with it. I worked as an office assistant at an accounting firm in high school, and that's where I kind of started to learn more and become a little more ingrained in that. And so now I have 2 degrees in it, and I'm studying for my first CPA exam. So I guess it worked out.
If I'm not mistaken, you're part of the business transition from moving from the BEC into the new Class School of Business building just off university. So what was it like being there during that time?
I felt very special. A lot of people were jealous of me because the building was so gorgeous. I mean, the classrooms were amazing. A lot of friends were jealous of me. I had friends that would just come study in there because it was so nice. It was so new. And I loved being able to drive by it, to walk by it, just coming right into Birmingham.
What is your favorite memory of UAB?
No, some of my best memories from UAB are the late night study sessions in the library. It's the week before finals and everyone's completely delusional and we're putting in the hard work, but that's really how you forged those friendships, the study groups with your friends, or with people in your class that end up being your friends. You make those connections. That really is where I think some of my best memories and what I miss the most.
You graduated December 2020. Not long after that, you got your master's degree. You're currently working with U.S. Government Accountability Office as a financial advisor. What does that entail, and why D.C.?
In the beginning of 2020, I visited DC for the first time. The last time I had been to DC was when I was really, really little. So I didn't remember much of it. And so visiting it again as an adult, I was blown away. It's such a beautiful city. There's so much to do in DC. It has so much to offer, and I really fell in love with it. So I got an internship up here. I just randomly, out of the blue, applied. GAO had an internship for a financial audit intern, and so I just figured, why not apply? And I got it after a long interview process. And so I really, really enjoyed my time and decided to come on full time. So now I'm a full-time financial auditor in downtown DC, auditing government financial statements.
Most people would think, oh gosh, that's got to be boring. So what is your day like?
Auditing is very fun to me. It's digging into the financial statements. It's really seeing where all of these numbers come from. So, it's meetings about, how are we going to, get this evidence, or the accounting term is reasonable assurance. So how can we be reasonably assured that this is accurate, this is correct? And so it's a lot of kind of that critical thinking of how are we gonna make sure that these financial statements are accurate. It's not for everyone. A lot of people hear my job and they would rather hit the snooze button and stay in bed, but I really enjoy it.
Where do you want to be down the road? Here you are, just starting your professional career. So what do you want to do?
Absolutely. The field of accounting is so broad. My dream job is to be a forensic accountant. So, digging into financial statements, catching the fraud. It's a very interesting field. I took one fraud examination class, and at UAB and really, really loved it. But also something that I'm really, really passionate about is financial literacy. And so I've kind of started a personal initiative that I really hope to build into a nonprofit. And it's all about putting financial literacy education in schools, advocating for it, because I was lucky enough to have that growing up in my family. But there is no United States mandated personal finance education.
Let's talk about Grace Ann's 2 cents. You're wanting to promote financial literacy across the country. So how do you establish that, and how do you make that initiative grow?
Personal finance education is very much state by state. DC does not have a mandated personal finance education. Some states have it as an elective. You can take it, you don't have to take it. States like Virginia, you are required to take it. So it's really taking an assessment of where each state is, where each school is, and really, really advocating for that.
Right now, where is Grace Ann's 2 cents? What are you providing and what are you doing?
Right now, it's all on social media. I've been in contact with some teachers, getting some financial literacy books into classrooms and spreading the message, getting people on board. I'm really trying to expand it. I do have a full-time job, so it's kind of in the works. Side hustle at the moment, but I'm hoping to grow it over the coming months and years.
How do you measure the success of that side hustle?
Right now, it's really being a part of the conversation. Financial literacy is getting a little bit more news and media coverage. Everything affects money, and money affects everything. And so it's really important that, as people are having more conversations and realizing that it does need to be put, that financial education is a huge part of our lives. And that's how I would measure the success.
Is the business model for this one-on-one, is it social media driven? What is the model for this nonprofit?
The business model will be a lot more of outreach, a lot more talking to schools, organization, departments of education, board of education, because that's where it starts. It starts with the bill to mandate personal finance education. And so it's a lot of advocacy, but it's also a lot of grassroots, getting into schools, getting into educational spaces and really talking about it, and get kids asking questions, and get them asking their board of education, their teachers, their principals about personal finance education.
How did UAB help lay the foundation for you to embark on this initiative, as well as your professional career that you've recently started?
Absolutely. I mean, my entire career and life is around money. I took my first income tax class at UAB, and I had all of my friends asking me tax questions. I had friends asking me finance questions. And so I realized that my financial education was not the norm. I had so many friends that had no clue how income taxes worked. They had no clue about their student loans. And so it really got me thinking, I was starting to provide financial advice to people who were twice my age. I think UAB really laid the groundwork for that. I mean, I've been to a few seminars at UAB that talked about financial literacy, that talked about, the reality of compound interest and credit cards and things like that. And I do think that it's really important that college students know that, but also I think that they should know that prior to coming to college.
So how do you talk to somebody that's twice your age about financial awareness?
I mean, it's a really hard conversation to have, because you have to sit there and say, I am in my 30s and my 40s and I don't know anything about money. And it's a very, very common experience. There are so many people that feel that way, rather than get into the shame and the blame of, I should know this, I should know this. We need to start making sure that it's a norm, that people understand what's happening when they sign their student loans, when they sign up for a credit card and things like that.
Looking back now, what's one thing at UAB you would change?
I'm not sure I would change anything. I really loved my years at UAB. I lived on campus. I was involved in athletics and in Greek life, and I was involved in my school of business. I got close with a lot of my professors and a lot of the people in the school of business. If anything, I wish I would have stayed a little bit longer, soaked it all in. UAB is constantly changing. And so I've been able to go back a few times and even see the new buildings going up and things like that. So Birmingham's a very, very special place.
Are you still dancing today?
When I can, I'll go to my gym and I'll dance around in the studio a little bit. I'm not doing anything organized yet, but maybe in the future.
And you're still a diehard Blazer fan.
Absolutely. Every time there's a football game, I try to tune in if I can. Everything about UAB will always be in my heart.
That's Grace Ann Champion, a two-time graduate of the UAB Collat School of Business. Grace Ann received her bachelor's degree in 2020, followed by her Master of Accounting in 2021. As a one-time member of the UAB Spirit Team, this former Golden Girl definitely has an idea of what it means to be a Blazer.
Being a UAB Blazer, I had so much pride, being able to stand there with the Blaze head on my chest, with UAB on my chest. I always felt a tremendous amount of pride. I think UAB is constantly pushing the boundary, whether it's in the medical field, whether it's in business. And so I think that UAB is constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. And it's welcoming that. It's welcoming that diversity of thought. So I think that, to be a UAB Blazer, I have tremendous pride. And I think that UAB is everything. It's diversity. It's pushing that boundary. It's really setting the world on fire.
Be sure to listen into previous episodes of UAB Green and Told. Check out our website at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold. Have a story to share or know someone we need to get in touch with? Email greenandtold@uab.edu. Finally, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search UAB Alumni. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers.